rehabilitated, and real entertaining. This is the Carl Jackson Podcast.
Hello and welcome to this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast, your daily dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. Guys, please subscribe to the podcast wherever you go to get your podcast. We're also on YouTube and Rumble, the free speech platform. The Carl Jackson Show is where you can find us. Please rate and review all things social media at the Carl Jackson Show is where you can go to find me there. Guys, I'm going to get into, on this particular episode, I want to speak specifically about this, the Hunter Biden put then VP dad Joe Biden on the phone with business associates at least 24 times. This is what Devon Archer is expected to testify to in front of the House Oversight Committee. Not sure if it'll be this week. From what I heard, it was canceled this week or earlier this week, moved to later this week. Now I'm not sure if it's going to happen in next week, but eventually, if he isn't Jeffrey Epstein, sorry to say that, but I don't trust any of these fools. But anyway, what we're going to get into is what Devon Archer is expected to testify to. Much of this stuff you already know, but I think it's important for us to just jog our memories of the total corrupt person that is sitting in the White House and Joseph R. Biden, and why, in my opinion, he must be impeached. I know that's a Herculean task. I know this is an election cycle, but I do want to explain to you why I believe that it must happen for the sake of saving America. All of this and more on the other side. Stay tuned for some quick program messaging, and we'll be right back.
I remember going over convincing our team, or others too, convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over for, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid.
Guys, okay, so if you recall, now we're going to go through the backstory now that Devon Archer is willing to testify to. So you guys recall that video of Joe Biden literally bragging about not handing $1 billion worth of aid over to the Ukrainian government. If Viktor Shokin being the Ukrainian prosecutor that was literally looking into Burisma, the energy company in Ukraine, looking into Burisma corruption. So Joe Biden wanted him fired. He was saying that Viktor Shokin was corrupt, when the real deal was Biden was corrupt. His son, Hunter, was setting up a deal with Burisma, meeting with an executive and the CEO, Zlochevsky. This is a lot of names I'm throwing out there, so just try your best to keep up, and we'll go through this in great detail and specificity. But this video, when we were thinking, actually, we didn't think this, but many people probably in the middle and on the left thought this was Joe Biden trying to do the right thing in Ukraine, when what Joe Biden was actually doing was getting ready to get paid because he was taking the dogs off of the investigative dogs, I should say, off of the Burisma executive and CEO. Shokin was going after Burisma because Burisma was corrupt as all get out. And Joe Biden knew this. Hunter Biden had literally sat down. This is what Devon Archer is going to testify to, had literally sat down with the executive and CEO of Burisma in an urgent meeting. And they demanded and they put pressure on Hunter Biden to make sure that Shokin was fired. That's what Joe Biden did. So we're going to give you a little bit of the timeline here, and I just want you to be informed on this. I want you to know the background of this, because we've all seen this video, but now we're learning more of the background as some of the evidence starts to surface. And I got to say this, I know this is going to be an Herculean task for the GOP, but I think they must impeach Joe Biden. I know that there won't be I know that they won't win things over in the Senate. I completely get that, but it has to be on record. Joe Biden's corruption must be on record. It must be detailed, and more Americans that are independents, more Americans that are in the middle, so to speak, or so-called, need to hear more of this information. They need to understand that they cannot elect Joe Biden. If Joe Biden is literally trying to take out his main rival in President Donald Trump, the world, the American people, the American voter deserves to hear the truth about Joe Biden that the mainstream media has been trying to avoid. But at some point, the mainstream media is not going to be able to avoid this. And by the way, you make sure you share this podcast, you share this information with as many people as you possibly can. Honestly, a couple things we all should be sharing, and that's the love of Jesus Christ, the gospel of Jesus Christ, and the Constitution. We got to keep this. We got to keep this country afloat. We got to make sure that in 2024 we get a Trump in or DeSantis in. But the only way that happens is if you guys put in the work necessary to do so. And some of that is sharing this information that I guarantee you many people have not heard. I'm going to go on in just a second, but before I do, I want to talk to you about my friends at MyPillow, because without this, man, Mike Lindell, this podcast is impossible. Guys, listen, right now on MyPillow, they have their 20-year anniversary. Over 80 million MyPillows have been sold, but now Mike Lindell is wanting to thank every single one of you that are out there by giving you the lowest price in history when it comes to MyPillow. So right now, a queen size pillow is selling for $19.98, marked down from $69.98. If you want a king, that's only $10 more at $29.98. And on top of all of that, you're going to receive deep discounts on all MyPillow products. So anything that you wanted to try, you've been thinking about before on MyPillow, whether it's bed sheets, mattress toppers, pet beds, mattresses, my slippers, and so much more, all you have to do is go to mypillow.com, click on the radio podcast square, at the top of the page, and enter my name, Carl, C-A-R-L, or give them a call at 800-858-0263. Guys, we got to support Mike Lindell. The left has done their best to try to take him out. And we have to make sure that doesn't happen. The number to call, 800-858-0263 or mypillow.com. Click on the radio podcast square, enter my name, Carl. All of the products come with a 10-year warranty and a 60-day money-back guarantee, all right? All right, so please, if you want a good night's rest, if you want to support American jobs and American manufacturing, mypillow.com, promo code Carl. All right, now, what we witness is absolute corruption. We're thinking Joe Biden, or many people are thinking that Joe Biden is going to Ukraine to fire a corrupt prosecutor, when in fact he was prosecuting, or he demanded that the prosecutor that was onto his son and potentially onto him and his corruption be fired. This is why Burisma paid Joe Biden 5 million buckaroonies, as well as Hunter Biden. And now more witnesses are coming forward. Obviously, you have the IRS whistleblowers that have come forward, many whistleblowers coming forward to speak the truth about the Biden crime family. And it's amazing, because you look at all the people that are complicit in this. By the way, I got some headlines that I want to share with you as well as I look down on my notes. Obama's personal chef. Did you guys hear about this? Obama's personal chef apparently was killed yesterday, or drowned yesterday, in a freak paddle boarding accident of some sort. Listen, I'm not a fan of Obama, but definitely we don't like to hear any news like that, especially people associated with him, people dying an untimely death. It's just not good. Let me just go into some of the headlines. Governor DeSantis was in a car wreck this morning. He appears to be okay, appears to be uninjured. Another thing, Biden sends a team to Mexico to discuss drug trafficking and immigration. Guys, what a waste of time. I hope you checked out my podcast. Please share my podcast from yesterday. I think that was a really good one. I need to make sure that I share it on social media, Gabe. I haven't done a good job of that. But I'm telling you, what the Biden administration is trying to do is totally erase the American citizen. They want a global world economy, globalization, and that is exactly what is happening with our borders. So it's perhaps even more intense than you might have suspected. But I detailed that in my podcast yesterday, so please check that out. But he's sending a team to Mexico to discuss drug trafficking. What a waste of time. Close the borders. Tell people they're not allowed to come here anymore. Don't go after Governor Greg Abbott that has set buoys and barbed wire inside of the Rio Grande. As a matter of fact, I believe that he should add anacondas and alligators and piranha to the Rio Grande. I had a couple people lash out on me on social media. Well, aren't you a Christian? You're advocating for someone to get injured or something like that. And I'm like, no, I'm not advocating. They don't have to cross the border illegally. Another lady opined that, hey, what about Americans that may want to get out? They don't have to go that route. There's other routes that they can go through the legal means of, you know what I mean? They can fly out of the country. They can drive out of the country. They can do whatever they want. But they need to go to a port of entry, exit, whatever, so that people know when you're coming and going. It's as simple as that. But I'm sorry, I'm not down for parents sending their children and the governments of Mexico and Central America sending young adult males to the United States in order to sap up all of our resources, or Mexican cartels being involved in the exploitation of children. All right. So for those of you that stand for that and you're complaining about me, Carl, how could you say that as a Christian? Well, how could you allow human trafficking to occur as a Christian? I think that's a more important question. All right. So now, what else do we have here? Robert Kennedy Jr. believes president must be investigated for bribery allegations. Quite frankly, I'm more concerned about what our GOP House believes. That needs to happen. Biden is mulling over removing Chinese sanction for human rights violations of the Uyghurs for China's cooperation with fentanyl crisis. So China is trying to become the big dog. They're literally they have a surveillance state set up in Cuba. They want to send troops over to Cuba. And here we are with the feckless, weak Biden administration mulling over Chinese sanctions for human rights. This stuff is just, it's driving me insane. I know that it's driving you insane as well. I cannot wait to be able to vote in 2024, but there's plenty of work that we can do beforehand, that we must do beforehand, as a matter of fact. So this is just absolutely insane to me. I'm looking up, there were some headlines that were on Real Clear Politics real quick that I just thought were very important that I want to bring to your attention. The whole stuff with Kamala Harris lying about the black curriculum. I did a podcast on that as well. In Florida, there were 191 reasons why the chick was lying. I mean, just completely lying. If you go through the Florida curriculum based upon what I saw that exists within the Florida curriculum, and this guy, Charles Cook from National Review, I mean, just detailed, literally 191 subtopics that are going to be included in the curriculum, you will be more informed than any other American, period. And there were there were some of the people that helped create the curriculum were black intellectuals. All right. So the DOJ sues Texas governor over the unauthorized immigration. All right. Biden donor friend appointee revealed as buyer of Biden donor and friend, or donor friend appointee revealed as buyer of Hunter's art. So one of these people that was given a cush position in government was one of the art buyers to Joe Biden, to Hunter Biden's art. It's pretty scandalous. All right. Pretty scandalous. So those are some of the things that are happening. U.S. Senator seek. Okay. Never mind. That isn't too important. All right. Yeah. The rest of the news is so-so. I was looking for news on the economy. Housing prices are continue to go up as well. Anyway, all right, let me get back to this issue with Devon Archer. And Devon Archer, again, he's expected to testify on the Hill eventually, hopefully one day soon. And that is assuming that he doesn't get Jeffrey Epstein. And I think you all know what I mean by that. But having read this latest column by Miranda Devine, it came out yesterday, I believe it was. Is that true? No, actually a couple of days now that it came out. I believe it came out the evening of, or Sunday night. You heard a lot of people kind of going through it and interviewing Miranda Devine. But some of them didn't get into the nitty gritty. So I'd like to get into the nitty gritty just so that you are fully aware and are informed on this potential witness, Devon Archer, and what he has to say. Again, we played the video of Joe Biden at the beginning of the podcast. Gabe did, Joe Biden saying, listen, he's gonna withhold $1 billion if Viktor Shokin, the Ukrainian prosecutor, wasn't fired. Now we know that what Biden was doing was actually covering his butt and fulfilling a request from the Burisma CEO and a Burisma executive. Burisma, again, an energy company in Ukraine that Hunter Biden sat on the board of, he and Devon Archer both. And Hunter Biden, I'm not sure of Devon Archer's salary, but Hunter Biden received $83,000 per month for being on that board. Gabe, would you say that's pretty good pay? I'd like to receive that kind of pay. That's pretty freaking amazing. No nothing, crackhead sitting on the board of Burisma making 83 grand per month. Unfreaking believable. So according to Devon Archer, Hunter's former best friend, and this I'm just going through some of the Miranda Devine's column, but she explains it in detail. And we've got another video that I want to play for you shortly here. So according to Devon Archer, again, that's Hunter's former best friend and his business partner, then VP Joe Biden participated or Hunter Biden would dial in his father, then VP Joe Biden, on speakerphone into meetings that he had with overseas business partners. This is what Devon Archer is willing to attest to. Now, Devon Archer is 48 years old. He's facing jail for his role in a, quote, 60 million bond fraud case, which I think is trumped up in order to silence him. He speaks of that as well. He's scheduled to testify to the House and Oversight Committee about meetings that he personally witnessed and that were attended by Joe Biden, either in person or via a speakerphone. So the pressure is starting to come out. As this news continues to come out, there is going to come a point of saturation where the mainstream media will not be able to avoid it any longer. So Hunter would call his father, according to Devon Archer, and introduce him to foreign business partners or prospective investors. All right. So here's a quote from James Comer of the House Oversight Committee. He says, "We're looking forward very much to hearing from Devon Archer about all the times he has witnessed Joe Biden meeting with Hunter Biden's overseas business partners when he was VP, including on speakerphone." So Joe Biden was a vice president of the United States under former President Barack Obama. Is it possible that Obama was compromised too? What's the likelihood that Obama, the president of the United States, didn't know that his DOJ was covering up for Joe Biden? What's the likelihood? Listen, this corruption trial, let me talk to you about all the people that were complicit and what happened with Donald Trump even. Obama is complicit, and the Biden crime family, the DOJ and the FBI, which are absolutely disgusting, are complicit. These people that are supposed to be the premier law enforcement agency around the entire world, they're complicit. There's obviously no way that they didn't know about this. This stuff was out in the open for the most part. The mainstream media, as they're finding out the information, just keep in mind, the mainstream media doesn't care about free speech. They don't care about corruption. All they care about is protecting the liberal brand. All they care about is protecting the Democrat Party, even if it's to the detriment of the country itself. This is how disgusting the mainstream media is. Big tech is complicit in this. The Facebooks of the world, the former Twitters of the world, these people are complicit in it. And consider this. Remember that this was one of the impeachment hearings that should have never occurred, by the way, when Trump had his call to Zelensky, Volodymyr Zelensky at the time, congratulating him for winning the presidency in Ukraine. And Trump gave him basically congratulated him. He did ask, I can't recall how, what exactly, how he framed it. But he basically kind of, asked about the corruption with the Biden administration or with Biden, and said he wanted to know the answers to that, basically. And I don't blame him. If you think that, Trump had the information of how corrupt things were, I wish he would have handled that differently, frankly, and not asked that question on when everybody is recording you. But he didn't understand how deep the deep state was. And so they set Trump up. It's amazing. Trump got impeached for corruption with Ukraine while Biden was being protected by the DOJ, the FBI, for corruption with Ukraine. And all they did was project all of Biden's corruption onto Trump and impeach him for it. So on that alone, Joe Biden should be impeached. On that alone. All right, so there was a Dubai meeting that took place late evening, Friday evening on December 4th, 2015. All right, December 4th, 2015, after a board meeting of the Ukrainian energy company Burisma, which was paying Hunter, again, $83,000 a month. So there was a meeting that took place late Friday evening. Devon Archer is expected to testify about this meeting. He says that after dinner with the Burisma board at the Burj Al Arab Hotel, he and Hunter traveled 6 miles north to the Four Seasons Resort Dubai at Jumeirah, or I may be butchering these names, all right, or locations or what have you. But they traveled 6 miles north to the Four Seasons Resort Dubai at Jumeirah Beach to have a drink with one of Hunter's friends on location. Let me talk to you about what I just read. If you've ever gone into court, I've been to court, a few times in my life, unfortunately, for some bad reasons, but also for some productive reasons. But when there's detail and specificity, when there's times, when there's locations, it's really hard to argue about that, or argue against that, I should say. When a witness offers this type of detail and specificity, they are letting you know they know what they know, meaning they are not lying. They are giving you dates, they are giving you times, they're giving you locations. Obviously, there's got to be calendars, there's got to be cameras around. There's got to be people that have seen it. There's got to be, I don't know, hotel lobbies or clerks or workers that can testify. Oh yeah, we happen to see them that day. So that people don't give this information when they're lying. They give this type of information when they're telling the truth. And that's why I believe that Devon Archer on this. So you have Burisma executives. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but Vadim Pozarski, he said that he needed to speak to Hunter, and he said it was urgent. All right. So he's a senior executive. This Vadim is a senior exec. You notice how we always do that as Americans, Gabe? Try to say his name, even like a Ukrainian name, like it's Spanish. All right, so I don't know how to pronounce it, but Vadym. All right, his last name Pozharskyi. So I'm just saying Vadim Pozarski. But he needed to speak to Hunter urgently. Now, he was an executive. He's not the CEO. Zlochevsky was the CEO of Burisma at the time. But they said, hey, we need to speak to your dad. This is while they were sitting at the bar with Hunter Biden and with Devon Archer. All right. And they wanted to know, while Hunter and Devon Archer were sitting at the bar, they phoned Hunter and told him that they needed to speak to Hunter urgently. And then what they asked was, hey, can you get a hold of your dad? Can you ring your dad, quote unquote, were the words that Devon Archer claimed they used. All four men at some point were sitting at the bar at the Four Seasons in Dubai at this, what was the name of this? What was the name of this beach? At Jumeirah Beach. All right, this is very detailed information. So these four men were sitting at the bar. The two Ukrainians joined Hunter and Archer at the Four Seasons bar, and then they asked Hunter, can you ring your dad? Bring, bring. All right, can you ring him? And at the time, according to Devon Archer, it was early afternoon Friday in Washington, D.C. All right, so they were in Dubai. It was early afternoon, late evening, Friday in Dubai, but Friday afternoon in Washington, D.C. Hunter calls Joe Biden right then and there, places him on speakerphone to introduce him to the Burisma executive and the CEO. Hunter put him on speakerphone, placed the phone on the table, according to Devon Archer, and introduced the Ukrainians to Joe Biden by name as Nikolai and Vadim. And I think he got the name Nikolai because it's Mykola Zlochevsky. So I think he got that name mixed up. I'm assuming that's what it is. And then Hunter told his dad that the Burisma execs needed his help. The Burisma executives needed Hunter Biden's help. Well, what was that help? All right, so VP Biden briefly spoke with the Ukrainians in vague pleasantries, as Devon Archer says that they were known to do. But Hunter told, again, Joe Biden, hey, these Burisma execs need our help. So why would the Burisma CEO, Zlochevsky, and the executive request an urgent meeting? I'll get to that in just a second. Here's what Miranda Devine in her New York Post article goes on to say. 3 days after the speakerphone call, the then vice president, who was the Obama administration's point man for Ukraine at the time, you guys recall that, was due to fly to Kiev, or to Kyiv. I don't know how it's pronounced, and frankly, I don't care because I'm an American. All right, so the then vice president, who was the Obama administration's point man for Ukraine, was due to fly to Kyiv to address the Ukrainian parliament, known as the Rada, on December 9th, 2015, about the poison of cronyism, corruption, and kleptocracy. So again, you have VP Joe Biden is due to fly to Kyiv to address the Ukrainian parliament, known as the Rada, on December 9th, about the poison of cronyism, corruption, and kleptocracy. All the while, the guy was guilty of cronyism, corruption, and kleptocracy. You see how sick this is? There's something else that I want to talk that I want to mention, that I want to make mention of. This has to be normative in Washington, D.C., or at least with Joe Biden. How many people have known that this man is so corrupt the entire time? A lot of people. There's no way a lot of people don't know about Biden corruption, which tells me that Washington has a very sick problem in dealing with corruption, and God knows how many people are corrupt there. I know we say that all the time haphazardly, but I a lot of people talk about term limits. I think the best solution is to move people out of Washington, D.C., where they don't need to be there all the time. They can develop some type of secure lines to take their votes in Washington, D.C. These people need to live home. Their congressmen need to live home in their districts. The vice president and the president, in my opinion, should be in Washington, D.C. I don't think the senators need to be there all the time. I think they need to be in their state. And maybe if they do need to meet, they need to meet in some place. I don't know. They need to meet in Alaska. They need to meet in some place where it's harder for people to get to them, and where they always have a lot of pressure from the voters themselves. All right. So voters know when and why they're traveling to Washington, D.C. I think that will do far more than term limits. All right. So 10 weeks prior to the speaker's phone call that occurred on December 14th, 2015, or in December of 2015, the U.S. ambassador, a guy by the name of Jeffrey Pyatt at the time, had given a speech about corruption in Odessa, Ukraine, in which he targeted Zlochevsky. So Biden knew that Zlochevsky was corrupt. He already knew that, yet he accepted a call with Zlochevsky and the other Burisma executive. 10 weeks prior to the speaker, to the speaker phone call that occurred at the Four Seasons Hotel in December 2015, the U.S. ambassador Jeffrey Pyatt had given a speech about corruption in Odessa. All right, and I made mention of that. Now, here's what it says here in Miranda Devine's column. By then, Viktor Shokin, the Ukrainian prosecutor, was investigating Burisma for corruption. And within 2 months, on February 2nd, 2016, would seize, listen to this, he seized 4 houses in Kyiv, 2 plots of land, and a Rolls Royce that belonged to Zlochevsky. Zlochevsky, again, is the CEO of Burisma. The other guy, whose name I can't pronounce, Vadim Pozharsky, he is an executive, all right, at Burisma. I don't know what role exactly, but he was an executive. Now, but the U.S. was already well aware that Zlochevsky was corrupt. And as a matter of fact, again, Biden was going there to talk about the poison of cronyism, corruption, and kleptocracy. And here he was wanting to get in on the action. And you almost wonder, why would Obama make him the point man? Obama didn't know this? See, this stuff just doesn't add up. You cannot convince me that Barack Obama did not know about this corruption. 1 month later, Shokin was fired. That was a video that Gabe played for you at the beginning of the podcast. So 1 month later, Shokin was fired That's when Joe Biden threatened to withhold $1 billion aid to Ukraine. And the reason we now know that Shokin was fired had nothing to do with corruption on his part, but everything to do with corruption on Joe Biden's part and corruption on the Burisma executive's part and CEO. So they had to get rid of the prosecutor, Viktor Shokin. You see how corrupt these people are. It's unbelievable. Here's a quote from Joe Biden. I looked at them and said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. You guys saw the video. If the prosecutor is not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a B, he got fired. You don't. This guy was bragging about getting the prosecutor fired that was looking into corruption, not of Hunter Biden. Guys, Hunter Biden is not the big guy. Joe Biden is. And he could not afford for this information to come back. As Shokin's probe gathered speed at the end of 2015, according to Miranda Devine, Vadim Pozharsky ratcheted up their pressure on Hunter, and those emails are on Hunter's laptop to make sure that they got Shokin fired. In an email to Hunter and Archer on November 2nd of 2015, 1 month before the speakerphone call, Pozharsky explicitly demanded that they use their influence to, quote, close quote, the criminal investigation against Burisma. Man, here's more testimony that's expected from Devon Archer. Also is expected to detail, Devon Archer is, other speakerphone meetings and his testimony, including a dinner at a restaurant in Paris where Hunter whipped out his phone and put his father on speaker to impress prospective investors. So there's no doubt in my mind that Hunter Biden, at times, Joe Biden would pop on the phone when he could, when he was free to do so. And at times, he would just use the leverage of, hey, this is my dad. But I believe that Joe Biden was fully aware of this stuff. I believe he was fully aware of all of this. Here's what Archer claimed that he witnessed. He witnessed the same party trick as many as 24 times. 24 times. And then don't forget about Tony Bobulinski. Tony Bobulinski recalls Hunter offering to get his father on the phone during a meeting by the pool at Chateau Marmont, or Marmont, I don't know how to pronounce it, in Los Angeles. Again, very specific locations. Obviously, these people can be seen at these locations. So they're like, try me. Here's a quote from Tony Bobulinski that the media recently found about. All of us knew about over 3 years ago when the news broke of him. And then eventually Tucker Carlson did an interview with him, extensive interview. I am also aware this was before the 2020 debate, if you guys recall that. I am also aware, this is Tony Bobulinski, I'm quoting him, of other Biden family business associates confirming that Joe would take phone calls from Hunter in the middle of business meetings and would weigh in via speakerphone. This is their modus operandi. He goes on to say, sitting with Hunter at Chateau Marmont before I first met Joe Biden on May 2nd, 2017, very specific date, Hunter was adamant that his father takes his calls at any time, no matter what his lawyers say, or with gatekeepers around. They didn't care. They didn't care. With gatekeepers like Kate Bedingfield playing interference. They didn't care. Their corruption was brazen. And people in the Obama administration, and I contend Obama himself, knew about it. Bobulinski goes on to say the American people don't fully appreciate yet the key role Joe Biden played in the Biden family global influence peddling. I would equate it to a chairman's role in a traditional business structure. He told Tucker Carlson the same thing, as I recall. Bobulinski says that he met with Joe Biden twice in Los Angeles. In 2017, he was to be vetted as the CEO of a joint venture between Hunter Biden and his uncle Jim Biden. They were planning with Chinese energy company CEFC, which would end up netting them millions of dollars for no discernible product or service. So these people are corrupt when it comes to Ukraine. They're corrupt when it comes to China. I wonder who else. They're compromised. This is why people, not just that Biden is incompetent, but he's corrupt. And this is why people don't have confidence in this Ukrainian war. Nobody knows a plan. We see what happened in Afghanistan. We know that this guy is incompetent. We know that he's corrupt. I'm sorry. Right now, at this point, we need to shut this war down. This guy's too corrupt. He shouldn't be making any decisions. Not to mention, his brain is fried. For God's sakes. Both meetings, according to Bobolinsky, were at the Beverly Hilton, and they were in May 2017. This was 4 months after Joe left the office as VP. 4 months after he left office, all right? Devon Archer thinks it's his civic duty to speak out. I know they're going to try to frame him as a criminal, but I believe that he's right. I believe that basically they trumped up these charges against him to silence him, and so that he would lose all credibility if he were to ever testify against Hunter and Joe Biden, which he's going to be allowed to do, and he's going to be given immunity to it. He says, and I quote, "I have nothing to hide, no revenge to enact, nor anyone to protect other than his family," and he feels he has been handcuffed by the absurdly bogus fraud case into remaining silent. In a form where he has immunity, he can at least start to speak truth. All right. I don't know if that was his attorney on behalf of him or if that was Archer himself. All right. So now listen to this. Miranda Devine's right. Since news broke that Archer would testify before the Republican Control Committee, his family has been receiving death threats and warnings to keep your mouth shut, quote unquote. You don't think that would terrify him and his family? I'm praying that this guy doesn't get Jeffrey Epstein. I truly am. Republicans, keep an eye out on this guy. During about one quarter of the speakerphone calls witnessed by Archer, Hunter would introduce his father to the foreigners with whom he was transacting business. So much for Joe Biden not knowing about Hunter's business dealings, but we didn't believe, no one with a modicum of common sense will believe that. You have a crackhead, and I'm not just saying that to be mean, but it's a statement of fact. You have a crackhead doing big business, not some minuscule handyman landscaping. You know what I'm saying? This dude is doing multi-million-dollar deals. Nobody knows for what, getting paid millions and millions and millions of dollars. These people are just corrupt. Listen to this. At other times, Miranda Devine writes, he would just speak to Joe without acknowledging that other people were listening in. So it's not clear how often VP Biden was aware that he was being used as leverage by his son. There's no telling what type of Joe Biden. Here's what Miranda, and maybe she writes this in her book, Laptop from Hell, but there's no telling what type of secrets Joe Biden may have given up. There's no telling who was recording him, because there's no telling if Hunter Biden was drunk, high. The guy is obviously not smart and not wise by any stretch of the imagination. So there were times where Joe Biden was on the phone not knowing other people was around. How dangerous is this? The world knows. The world knows. There's Russia aligning on the Ukrainian border, Joe Biden doing nothing about it, China spying on us from Cuba, flying a spy balloon surveilling the United States of America, getting ready, it seems like, to attack Taiwan. Biden can't do anything about it. Imagine how much dirt they have on these people. And for the sake of power and for the sake of not going to jail, for the sake of one man not going to jail, they're willing to destroy the United States of America. There's no plausible deniability. Also, Archer is also expected to testify about 2 dinners Hunter organized for his VP father to meet business partners from Ukraine, Russia, Kazakhstan, in a private room at Georgetown restaurant Cafe Milano. Very specific. Very specific. All right. Hey, where's the video? Oh, there is no video. Oh, really? There's no video at that particular time? This stuff is very specific. Burisma executive Pozharsky attended the first dinner on April 16, 2015, along with Russian billionaire Yelena Baturina, her husband, former Moscow Mayor Yuri Luskov. I can't pronounce these names. The next day, Hunter received an email from the Burisma executive Pozharsky to thank him for introducing him to his father. The email says, quote, "Dear Hunter, thank you for inviting me to D.C. and giving me an opportunity to meet your father and spend some time together," close quote. "It's really an honor," he goes on. "It's really an honor and pleasure," quote unquote. Now, Joe Biden has said he knew nothing about Hunter's business dealings. This is just a plain lie. Just a plain lie. Making sure I didn't miss anything. I want to play. Also, there's Zlochevsky also alleged, remember, to have 2 recordings of the conversations that included Joe Biden and another 15 with Hunter. So he has information as well. He's using it as leverage. So he doesn't end up Jeffrey Epstein, no doubt. Hopefully he's put it into some people's hands that he could trust to get the information out just in case. Also, in a notorious 2017 email to Hunter and Bobulinski, their business partner with James Gillier outlined percentage equity breakdowns of a joint venture with Chinese firm CEFC, with 10 held by H, which I'm assuming is Hunter, for the big guy. Archer is also expected to testify that, quote, "the big guy," quote unquote, was a nickname used by Hunter's business partners to refer to Joe Biden. Bobulinski also says Joe Biden is the big guy, which we just read. So these people are corrupt through and through. Excellent detail by Miranda Devine. I'm sure you can also see this in her book, Laptop from Hell. But this is old information, but new information. Now we can go back and look at that initial video that we played. We'll close it out with a video here that there's just no way, there's absolutely no way that the Republicans can walk away from impeachment. And listen, I know this is a Herculean task. I get it. Because you have to, just being real, you have to consider the politics of it too, right? Because the country is already hurting. They're hurting from Bidenomics. You know, gas is higher, food is higher. Rent is higher. It's harder to buy a home. And today, prices are skyrocketing as people move from certain parts of the country to other parts of the country. So there's less inventory available, jacking prices up. Yet again, keeping first-time buyers out of the housing market. Things are just not good. But I think that the Republican Party, they need to do this. They need to get this on record. They need to impeach Joe Biden just to hold this man accountable and to allow the American people to see the information and then quickly transition to the economy and things of that nature. So they need to get this done. And in my opinion, they need to get it done quickly. If they let this thing sit around for much longer, they will not impeach Joe Biden in the election year. I just don't think that'll happen. So I think they need to make this happen as quickly as possible. Get as much evidence out there as they can. They can resort to it during their campaigns, but they need to talk about the economy and all the things that are impacting the American people in everyday life. But they have to get this out of the way. People have to know that Joe Biden is corrupt. And if he's going to ding our front runner and Donald Trump, this fool deserves to be dinged, not for the sake of revenge, but for the sake of true justice. We'll play this video closing out to wrap up this podcast. This is Peter Schweitzer. You guys know Peter Schweitzer. He's written so many books on the government corruption, Biden corruption, Hillary, all this kind of stuff. But here he is talking about, man, I forget exactly what he's talking about. This particular issue, Devon Archer testifying, and how it'll be hard for the Obama, same thing in my opinion. It'll be hard for Biden to walk away from this. Let's go ahead and roll that video as we close it out here, Gabe.
Sir, he's the president of Government Accountability Institute and author of Red-Handed. So this Devon Archer testimony is going to be devastating. It's going to be explosive. He knows everything. How do they survive that?
It's going to be very hard, Jesse. Look, the walls are closing in. First, you had the bank records that show that the money was being transferred. Now you have the testimony of business partners. Devon Archer is one. There are going to be others. And other than Joe Biden himself, Devon Archer is Hunter Biden's most important business partner. When Hunter Biden joined the Burisma board, Devon Archer got a seat on the board as well. When Hunter Biden got that sweetheart deal with that Chinese private equity fund and got put on the board, Devon Archer got the same slot. So he knows where everything is. And it's going to be very, very hard for the Democrats on this committee to do what they did with the whistleblowers, which is argue Joe Biden played no role. The evidence is there, and their defenses keep shifting. And I think Joe Biden is in serious trouble.
He's going to have to be able to put Joe Biden on phone calls, in meetings. He's going to have to talk about what people knew and when they knew it. What does it tell you now the White House is changing their defense strategy? It's no longer Joe didn't talk about business. It's now Joe wasn't in business.
Yeah, we've been at this since 2018. They initially said there were no foreign deals. Then they shifted and said there might have been foreign deals, but the Bidens made no money. Then it became Joe Biden didn't know about any of the deals. Then it became Joe Biden didn't participate in any of the deals. And now it's that he was not in business with his son. Look, the implications for this are huge, Jesse. If you
let's hold it. Let's hold it right there for just a sec. All right, we have to break up the video for the sake of copyright infringement. But the fact that the Biden administration are changing their tune over and over and over and over again just lets you know that there's corrupt. Imagine if we had a media that wasn't corrupt. Imagine if we had journalists that were not corrupt. This is why shows like this are very important. So guys, please subscribe. Please share this podcast. I say this with all sincerity. This is your daily dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. We're trying to sort stuff out. So please share this podcast with everyone and anyone that you can. We would certainly appreciate it. Subscribe to our podcast wherever you go to get your podcast. Let's continue on here, Gabe.
If you look at that 1023 form that the FBI released, if that document is true, that document reveals that one of the people that was at those meetings that heard the conversations about bribing the Bidens worked for President Zelensky. Who really wants to believe, if that meeting took place and that document is accurate, that that individual did not go and report to President Zelensky what he heard? And again, if that document is true, who wants to believe that President Zelensky and his administration have not used that as leverage over Joe Biden when it comes to negotiations on Ukraine policy? We may all have to start learning the Ukrainian word for compromise, because this is a very clear indication of how this has shaped this administration's policy towards Ukraine and also towards China.
Exactly. And now listen to this. Business Insider just revealed one of the people who paid for Hunter's artwork. Her name is Elizabeth Naftali. She's not an art collector at all. She's a Democrat donor, and she's a friend of the Bidens. She donated to the Biden campaign, and Joe appointed her to a cushy government post shortly after Hunter's art show. Does that surprise you, Peter?
No, Jesse, it's the grift. I mean, look, the question that we've always asked, and that I know you've asked, is what is the Biden's business? They're getting all this money from overseas. They're getting all this money for artwork that, frankly, is not worth $500,000. What is the business? What's the product? The product is Joe Biden. Let's remember, with Burisma, the Ukrainian energy company, Hunter Biden was getting $83,000 a month when his father was vice president of the United States. When his father became the ex-vice president of the United States, Hunter's take from Burisma was cut in half. So everybody knows what the product is and why this was being done. And the Democrats, I think, that continue to cling to the notion that there's nothing here, there's nothing to see, are making a big strategic mistake in my mind.
Yep, they're getting hung out to dry. Peter, thank you so much. And as always, thanks for pushing this investigation so hard.
Thanks, Jesse. Appreciate it.
All right. That was Peter Schweitzer of the Government Accountability Institute on Jesse Waters, the Fox News host, Jesse Waters show. Man, this corruption is so deep. They have no place to go. I guarantee you, Democrats want to throw this guy overboard, but the longer they wait, the harder it will be to do it. This is why I do believe that if they're going to throw him overboard, and they would throw Kamala Harris overboard as well, because she just absolutely stinks, they would have to try to win the Joe Biden would have to win the nomination. That's why they're trying to choke out RFK Jr. Joe Biden would have to win the nomination, and then he would have to hand it off to Gavin Newsom. And I suspect they would do a deal. You're not going to be prosecuted, but you're going to give up the White House. You're going to give up this race because you're so compromised, you have no chance of winning. This also explains why they continue beating Donald Trump up. The goal, again, is to beat Donald Trump up and make his favorabilities or his favorability numbers so low that he can't win. The problem is more people find out about Joe Biden, and as more people live under his administration and his policies, he is not likable. And so they are going to be in search for a new candidate, in my opinion. Guys, I appreciate you tuning in to this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. Again, please subscribe to the podcast wherever you go to get your podcast. Also, please find us on Rumble. Please find us on YouTube. If you would subscribe, rate, and review, we would appreciate that. Give us the highest score possible. I believe that is a 5. That'll help us to be seen. And until next time, do not grow weary doing good. Thank you, Mike Lindell, for supporting this podcast. MyPillow.com. Promo code Carl, Radio Podcast Square. Just go and click on that at the top of the page. Until next time, don't grow weary doing good. God bless you.